It's a city on the grow, and with that means more children going into the public school system. Yeah, it's a blanket statement, but it's certainly happening in this metro area, and that does include Fargo. And they're trying to figure out what are the options going forward. And they're preparing to ask you, as district taxpayers, of what you'd like when then they roll out. Here's some of the needs we have. Keep in mind that the average age of some of these schools is 46 years. That's older than Eric Johnson. And Seth Holden is in.
Not by much.
Not by much, but barely. I'm the youngest out of all you guys.
You are. You are. I would. I'd care to take a wager if we stood side by side. How many people would pick you as younger than me?
It's the life lived in the years that I've had.
Okay.
That's what's the grayness in the beard, Seth.
Like Indiana Jones says, it's not the age, it's the mileage.
There you go. I'm going to write that down and use that every single day. Somebody comments about how old I look. Thank you for that. Seth Holden's our guest. He's a Fargo Public School board member, and I'm glad you're able to come on into it. We've had conversations over the phone. I think it's the first time you've been able to join us in the building here.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad because I'm hoping I'm not alone, a little confused. There's a variety of different options. Within those options are paths going forward that I'm like, what? How are we doing that? And that's why I know that we're having meetings tonight. But with all that said and done, let's start with where we are and why now we have something to discuss about the future of the Fargo Public Schools.
Okay. Well, just a little bit of history. In the past 10 years, we've been working with a long-range facilities plan that was about 10 years, and so it's pretty much aged. And so we've now looking at a new 10-year or at least a long-range facilities plan. Depends on how many years you look at, but we need to take a look at our buildings and see where we need help and where we need to make some investments, where we maybe need to make some changes, some growth things that we need to look at and take into consideration. And last spring, I believe, we hired a firm, and they came in and they did a assessment of all our buildings. They came in and basically tape measured every single building, every single room, and gave us a kind of a screenshot of what we're looking at with all our buildings, and with that, looking at our guiding principles, where we're looking at growth in our district, where our buildings need help. They're working with our community to kind of come up with a plan that they can present to the school board, that the school board can either adopt, we can make some changes to it, we can completely dismiss it, but we hired a firm to help us do that work, to let us know where we're sitting as a district. So, and
they were thorough in what
Very
they
thorough.
did. And I think, having that as the foundation of the conversation carries a lot of weight to it, because when it comes to all of this, you're going to have to ask for voter approval and getting a bond so you can make the improvements.
If we have to.
Sure, yep. And I think that's important to point out.
It is, yep.
Because I know instantly when this word came out, you understandably have people like up in arms as far as, well, why don't they do this, or they should do that, or some people saying, hey, right now we just have a blueprint of a variety of options. Nothing set in stone right now.
Yep.
But that clay is going to get molded a little bit here over the next couple of days, right?
Hopefully next couple of months over the spring, and to your point with the questions of why don't you do this and why didn't you do that, that's part of the reason I think, and I sat on the short list of people that interviewed for who we were going to hire to do this work, and one of the things that really stood out to me was their willingness and their how important they knew it was to engage with the community on this, because it could be a big undertaking. We do need a lot of work, and they made sure that they were very thorough about how we engage with the community, and I think we're hoping to alleviate some of those questions on the back end by engaging with our community on the front end, so that we can understand what people want and where their needs are and where their concerns are, and work with them because this is all our district, and we want to make sure that we include everybody in the process. And
the footprint of that district is quite large.
It is.
We talk about all the growth down south, and maybe it's not fair to compare, but I've pointed out that the city itself is focused on some areas to the extent where they haven't maybe given that tender loving care to another neighborhood. And do you feel, or do you worry at all that that's been the case when it comes to the Fargo Public School District? Because all the growth is necessitated more attention that, okay, now we're thinking about North Fargo,
Mm-hmm.
or no, I'm wrong in that assessment?
Well, I mean, it's no, it's no secret we've been growing at a rapid rate,
Yeah.
and as a school district, we need to make sure that make sure that there's school buildings where there's kids, and that has been a focus because of the growth, and we've had to do it. But we really want to step back and take a look at every building in our district and how we can be more efficient as a district and really have buildings that provide adequate education environments for our kids. So
The options as they've been laid out, and again, they're just options and they're not set in stone as of yet. They're so complex, especially I think that last option. I don't know if it's dubbed option C or what, but I don't know how you follow along with some of this. Say we're going to demolish, we're going to move, we're going to build. There's a lot to digest here, Seth.
There is, and if you notice in the plans, and they are on our website, they're available there. The north side has been ignored for a long time, and so that is kind of where most of the adjustments and work is going to need to be done. It is a complex plan, but like you said, and like I'll reiterate, this is just a blueprint for right now, and it's not set in stone. And I mean that's part of why we're having some engagement this week, so we can continue to make adjustments to this plan, so that it's something that the community can get behind and is happy with as a whole. I mean, obviously you're not going to please everybody,
right? And I want to talk about some of that when I come back here. Seth Holden is our guest. He's a Fargo Public School Board member. Tonight, though, I don't want to get you some of these dates for the community meetings. 6 to 8 o'clock tonight. That's Tuesday, January 9th. Davies High School is where you can attend. Wednesday, tomorrow, at South High, and then Thursday at North High for some of these community meetings. I got questions coming in for you at the text club as well. I'll get to some of those about points of contention. I think, like you say, you're not going to be able to please everybody.
No, you're not.
But sometimes it seems like there is an issue that brings up more passion than others. So I'll get to that. But I got to get a weather update from Too Tall Tom Szymanski. We'll come back more with our conversation with Seth Holden next. Seth Holden, our guest, Fargo Public School Board member. We're talking about the opportunities for you to get on out and have your voice heard. Community meetings going on tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday. Again, tonight's Davies, Wednesday South, Thursday North High. Seth, I got questions coming in for you at 35270. Tyler, have they looked at using their buildings to the full extent? And do they need to build more buildings? This is the problem I have with our school system and Fargo. Use the buildings to capacity, then build. Your response to that?
That is actually one of the things that we're hoping to be able to accomplish is some of the north side buildings are not adequately used. And so if you look at some of those plans, there are some consolidation options where and we do have four split campuses in two different spots right now, but to put two schools together to make one, to make sure that we are adequately filling those buildings and we don't have empty space and empty seats, because we live in a linear city, and so to not build new buildings, that's a lot of busing to make,
right.
And that always comes with resistance when you have to, and we want walkability. We want our kids to be able to walk to school if they have that option, and so yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that that Corporate Strategies looked at was how utilized, overutilized, or underutilized our buildings are. So
seems to me that anytime we're talking about public schools, buses, boundaries are the two things that get the most attention and get the most, I'd say, emotion brought into this, saying, why are you drawing the line here and sending my kid to this school when I could be right across the street? The walkability thing, all those things, but eventually you have to have lines drawn. I suspect those are going to be the two things you probably hear again in this.
Yep. And I think those are obviously going to be things that the board will have to take into consideration when we're presented a final report from Corporate Strategies. This will be, obviously there'll be many things that the board will discuss before we make a final decision. So.
Well, and back to that text about the buildings as they are at that capacity, I want to remind our listeners that the average age of these schools are 46. So with that said, yep, we can use to capacity, but even with the current infrastructure, you're going to need some upgrades. That's going to cost money.
Yeah, and sometimes trying to maintain is actually, and status quo is going to be not a good use of taxpayer dollars, because you have to continually pump money into buildings. And then you also have to take into consideration, too, we have a couple of buildings that don't have secure entrances. Well, in order to make those secure entrances, like the rest of our buildings in the district, that takes a massive remodel. And at some point, there's a cost-benefit analysis on whether or not you need to look at a different option, or you're just going to keep, throwing money away. And that's not what we as a board were elected to do. We were elected to look out for the best interest of our students and our staff and our teachers, and be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. So,
one thing, and I know that it's different school districts, it's different taxpayers, but when it comes to asking voters for money, it's not always easy. No. And we just saw, recently in West Fargo, where they came back and their district had been routinely saying, yep, until now. And I think it was more or less due to voter turnout or lack thereof than this. But the price tag on that, is not near what I'm looking at when it comes to these options. So I do that as a foundation, saying this is a long-term plan. Right?
It is. Yes, it is a long-term plan. If we were to approve this plan as it stands right now today, we would not be doing every single one of these things all at the same time. That would be disastrous. And so that is also part of what the board will have to decide, and or what we would direct administration to do, as far as a plan and a timeline, and trying to figure out, where do we go first, and where are the priorities, and that those are pieces that we'll still have to figure out too. So,
but again, separate districts. Did you learn anything with the handling of the West Fargo referendum that this committee is now going to be taking forward? As far as one thing that, and maybe this kind of lands on some of us as well, the information didn't get out as readily as I think it should have been. I live in the West Fargo district. I didn't get mailers.
You may be able to speak to it more than me.
Yeah, but I didn't get mailers until the day of or after the election. So those type of issues, that's more campaign stuff that I know is down the line, but I think that is inevitable. There's going to be a request of taxpayers to pony up a little bit more here. Did you follow along so that we don't have some of the same issues at least?
I don't know if necessarily lessons learned, but I think right out the gate when this started to be discussed, me personally, I always felt that, and this is, I think, part of the reason why I supported the choice of corporate strategies was this. If we have to ask taxpayers for money to do this, if we have to ask people to, send their kids to one spot where they might not want to send them, and if we're going to have to ask the community for sacrifices, we have to include the community in that discussion and include the community in this decision making. And this is why we're having a steering committee and these community meetings, because we want the community to be on board with us, because we listened to them and we took into consideration their concerns and their wishes. And I think that's why I'm really encouraging everybody to come out tonight. And let's we want to hear what you have to say.
I got a time for a call for you. Seth Holden, our guest. I've got a couple of minutes to get Bob on. Bob, I got 2 minutes for your question. Thanks for calling.
Okay. Does not the Fargo School District have a reserve building fund where you, on an annual basis, bank monies for the retirement of certain facilities and improvements, and address the problems that inevitably come along with aging buildings?
Yes, we do. However, the balance fund of that building fund is nowhere near our current needs.
Bob, anything else?
Not even for the.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm interested. They're still addressing security issues on school buildings when this has been a concern for 10 years.
Seth,
yes.
Anything to add there?
I didn't quite hear a question there with the security part.
Bob?
Well, my question was, school security has been a big issue for 10 years, and I'm surprised there's still issues that need to be addressed in some of these buildings if security is a problem.
Well, and I think with a couple of the buildings that don't have secure entries, I think the main issue is what's the cost benefit analysis of doing a remodel to fit that security in, because some of those buildings are so old, they were never designed to have the front office right there, where you have to walk to the front office first before you even get to the building. So massive remodels would have to be done. And we want to take a holistic approach to this, given the fact that our current long-range facilities plan is coming to its end. We wanted to make sure that we were looking at the district as a whole so we can make the best decisions possible for all of our buildings and be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars.
Bob, I appreciate the phone call and the comment and the question. And I think when security is such a broad statement, because when I hear that term, you think about, okay, well, the locked doors. But then when you bring up the fact that now the requirement is you have that front office right there, that check-in, and some of the logistics of that is going to be more than just replacing a door to make it a little bit more sturdy and lockable. Yep. Again, Seth, I appreciate your time. I did have one question about if your band is going to be returning to tour anytime soon. That comes in by a text. That's from a listener.
I have many, many bands that I've played with over the years, and so that's a pretty vague question. Okay. But I currently play in a band, and we play out all the time. So
well, hey, I appreciate you taking time. I'm going to give people information one more time. Tonight, from 6 to 8 is at Davies High School. Tomorrow, that same time at South High, and then Thursday, North High, 6 to 8 is when you can have your voice is heard out there. Seth, I appreciate the time, man. You take care.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. Thanks for having me on.
We'll come back to more Afternoons Live right after your KFGO News.